It doesn't matter what day. I think it's like a Monday to Friday. I don't know if they do it on weekends, but any time between 6 to 8 a.m., all right, you're gonna be asleep, okay? And all you're gonna hear is a bell, ding, ding. It's gonna get louder, ding, ding. And you're gonna hear a man's voice go, Gaik, Gaik.
What I know as home is here, but when I was in Palestine, I really realized that maybe my home is somewhere else. Maybe it is in Palestine. And why do I say that? It's because of the sense of belonging I felt when I was in Palestine.
And then when I stepped foot into Ramallah, it was a totally different scene. It was like cars honking and people talking and peddlers everywhere, and it was just like, it would look like a flea market. It was cultured. And I was just like, yeah, my people.
The key of return. It is a physical key that many Palestinians, many of our own grandparents, had actually held with them when they traveled from Palestine to wherever when they were expelled in 1948. For example, my own grandmother, she was 13 at the time. She was married to my grandfather, Allah yarhamah, and they had a child together. Their walk from northern Palestine to southern Lebanon was hours, days. It took them so long to get there, and it was a very cumbersome and tiresome journey. So tiresome that they had actually contemplated leaving their eldest child behind. But of course, the love of the mother never allowed that to happen. Alhamdulillah, they were able to come as a family to southern Lebanon together. But that's exactly why they still hold on to the physical key to remember that they have every intention of coming back. Even if it wasn't their generation, it would be their children, it would be their grandchildren. And that's why we're so adamant on the fact that no matter how many generations removed you are from those who were expelled from Palestine, or no matter where you live or where you were born, you still have that right to return.
I'm connected to Palestine by birth. My parents and my grandparents, all four of them, are born in Palestine. My connection is my culture and my family culture. It's at home. So early 70s, you went to school, you're in Canada, you came home, you're back in Palestine. So we maybe left Palestine, but I don't think Palestine ever left us.
Honestly, I don't think it's one physical thing. It's something I find that's more not the land or the ground or the home or my family or anything like that. It was the will of the Palestinian people. So the spirit of the Palestinian people to fight on. I remember the first time I went, or the first time I was conscious while I was there, was in 1990. I was very young, but I remember thinking, how do these people even live? Like children 7, 8 years old are being arrested, administrative detention, what they call in Israel, which basically means they're arresting children, no charge, no trial, nothing, just holding them, administrative detention. And I remember one of the fathers of one of the children that was arrested, and the kid couldn't have been more than 12 or 13 years old. And his dad just said to me, I said, how do you live? How is this night? Like, how do you get through the night even? And I remember him saying in Arabic, he said, "Ma layl illa ba'dahu nahar," which means, and my Arabic is not great, but which basically means it's always darkest before the dawn, like we say in English. And really, he just had optimism in his heart, right? It's always darkest before the dawn, and that's the reality that they live in.
One of the most fondest memories I have when I was back there, actually living there in kindergarten or in preschool. I also I have pictures of this, and I do remember a bit of it, but I apparently used to do debke when I was this tall. From what my mom has told me, I was the one who's leading the debke line, so I'm the person at the front who's called the lawih, who has the thing and spins it in his or her hand. And I was doing that when I was a kid, and in our debke group right now, that is also my position, and so it's kind of cool to kind of see that contrast.
Being there really opened up my eyes, and I really began to appreciate my Palestinian heritage way more. It's the simple things like the olive oil.
We have a lot of traditional foods that you can't be Palestinian if you don't love them.
I don't know if you ever heard of zirib before. It's meat, lahma, right, goat meat, but what it is either a barrel in the floor or someone digs like a deeper hole and they kind of flatten out the soil and throw a grid down and throw some hot stones, and then it becomes like really hot, like a barbecue. And then they put the meat down there and they cover it with sand and they leave it for hours. You come back, you remove all the sand, you remove all the dirt, you take it out, it just falls off the bone. That's what you call zidib.
Oh man, 77. So in 1990, I would have been 13. And even as a 13-year-old, like I was terrified, to be honest. Like during the Intifada, it's like you go outside, there's shooting, there's tanks. It's not like, I mean, when people think about a military zone, you can't really envision it unless you're there, right? And it is very scary, but I remember a child younger than me, I think he was 10 years old, said to me, listen, when you come to Palestine, the first thing you have to lose is your fear. Otherwise, you won't get through one night.
Another reason that that allowed me and others that when I was there to be so fearless was seeing the little children. They were so courageous, they were so fearless that even if you felt like a moment of fear, you just looked at them and you knew automatically, like, they're okay, I'm okay.
Bravery. You know, Norm Finkelstein has an amazing quote where he says, these days most things are made in China, or most things are manufactured in China except bravery. That's manufactured in Palestine.
I left Lebanon when I was 2 years old, and the closest I've ever been to Palestine is just when my families would travel to very southern Lebanon and we would just see it from afar. My entire family, aside from my dad, still lives in the refugee camp. I have young cousins who are very bright, very smart, and they have a very promising future. But the opportunities in the refugee camp are just not the same, of course, as they are in Canada.
I've always had this around my neck to remind myself, you know, like, this is where I'm gonna be from, always. And I do genuinely, like, I do genuinely believe that one day I could live there. Like, I love Palestine. My main connection is obviously my family. I have still my grandparents, I have aunts, I have a lot of cousins.
And I remember taking my wife, who's Lebanese, from Bar Ilyas, took her and my kids, and actually my oldest son, Muhammad, his first steps were actually in the Aqsa Mosque. And I have video proof, and like we were saying, this generation, if there's no video, it didn't happen, so I have video proof that my son's first steps were in the Aqsa.
Every year, I try to plan my schooling and my work, anything around the fact that I want to go back to Palestine.
Palestine, 100%. I think that's an easy question. Palestine will always be home. You can be somewhere physically, but your mind and your brain and your intentions are somewhere else. And I think I'll always go back to Palestine as my home. That is where I want to be. That is where I would be happy to live in.
It's very difficult to miss something you've never had. Asking me this question is not the same thing as asking a 70-year-old or an 80-year-old that was asked to leave or flee.
Never stepping foot in Palestine obviously makes me really upset. It makes me really sad.
Honestly, the hardest part is not knowing when you're going to go back, not knowing what the state will be 5, 10 years down the line, whether it'll be easier or harder.
Probably that this connection wouldn't last because I don't have a right to return. So the hardest part of leaving is knowing that my return won't be as easy. My children's return won't be as easy. I think the emotional thoughts is the hardest part.
It's important to hold on to what makes you who you are, despite everything that goes on around you. And if we can do that, no matter what happens to the land, no matter what the occupation says, Palestine will always exist, and we are that reason. It's not just a physical space to be Palestinian, it's also just how you embody yourself and go about your life.